Welcome to the Money Business Podcast. I'm your host, Neal Regino. Today I have Ian Murphy here. He's one of our advisors that's at Evolution. He's kind of in the middle of like that beginning to kind of past that initial hurdle stage. So I wanted to get you in here, talk a little bit about your background, what led you here, what led you into this career, go through it and talk about what it's like to be running your own practice and go from there. So appreciate you coming in here.
Of course, yeah. Thanks for having me, Neal. I'm very excited.
Great. So first of all, let's talk about your background. So where are you from? What were you doing before you started in this industry, and what led you to this industry?
Yeah, so grew up in South Jersey, so not a Delco native. But
No. I'm just kidding.
yeah, right across the bridge over in Swedesboro, I grew up. Really kind of found Evolution not directly out of school. I worked in some temporary medical staffing for a little bit, maybe 6 to 8 months. Knew that I wanted to get into finance. Went to school for finance. Was just kind of taking my time to really find a place that worked for me and kind of aligned with my career goals. And that's when I came across you and Evolution, and really kind of felt that it was a great fit. Would have allowed me to take the steps I wanted to take and kind of build a foundation for the next hopefully 20, 30, 40 years of financial planning.
That's great. Well, you skipped over one part, which it's kind of a theme you'll see with a few of these podcasts back to back. There's a sports theme.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I talk about a lot is people in their 20s that it's a hard career and your friends haven't actually built their careers up yet. You don't know a whole lot of people that are, I'd say, established already in their careers. You don't have that big network. So for me, when I'm talking to people about this career and how difficult it is, if they don't have an athletic background, I think it's going to be harder and that's just my own opinion. And so far it's been working out. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your sports background too?
Yeah. Yep. So really, fell in love with baseball at a very young age and had the opportunity to play in college. Started at St. John's University and then, was able to, go play while I was pursuing a bachelor's. Go play while I was pursuing a graduate degree at Boston College. Yeah. To your point, I really think it has to do with, having the ability to accept failure fairly easily and just kind of move on from it. This is a space and really starting out in an industry that you just kind of get kicked around a lot.
Yeah.
You get told no a lot. People are offended almost by you approaching them. So you just kind of have to be able to let all that, really kind of roll off your back and go approach the next person.
Yeah.
So obviously a background in sports, I feel like, has kind of prepared me for that. It's made me comfortable talking to people, but also very comfortable, dealing with failure and the, lack of success that you have in the early years.
Yeah. Well, I like that we talk about that because, everybody will see that seasoned advisor that's successful and think that it's always easy and they're past that point where they're having so much of the no's and the failed to close a client that they think they can really help. So being able to hear what's real about it, I think is important. So, the actual financial services over other places versus like accounting or versus another job that you can be running your own business. What actually drew you specifically to this type of career?
Yeah. So one, the ability to be client facing. I like creating relationships. I feel like it's just important for me to, kind of have the ability to talk to people on a day-to-day basis. But why financial services and financial planning in specific? Really, I felt like it was an underserved industry, maybe, over diluted, but underserved. And there's way too many people out there that really have no idea. They're financially illiterate. They think they might have done some kind of planning to this point, but don't understand the importance of really kind of creating a roadmap to follow. So really kind of what drove me to the space and, what got me here was the understanding that I could really help people, really kind of put them in a better situation just by having a conversation. And I didn't feel like I was going to get that in a different field, maybe, a finance field, but just not one that's like actively kind of working with people.
And so I started out this career in a different path where one of the larger firms that paid you a draw, you still had some cushion. It wasn't, you weren't really owning your own book of business, your own clients, and here you do. So, you chose a place that took on a little bit more risk than some of the other ones. What made you choose this path over working at one of the larger big firms that publicly traded companies that people know?
Yeah, well, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's equity in the book that you're building long term. I didn't want to put all the work in to eventually one day decide to go independent and then basically start from scratch. Obviously, it is more difficult, in the early on, just kind of getting by, paying expenses and stuff. But that being said, I do see the light at the end of the tunnel. I see the importance of establishing something that I can kind of grow on my own terms, essentially, not be forced to subscribe to any specific planning philosophy. Do things that are more, I guess, firm related and really kind of have the ability to be as personal and customizable as possible with working with clients.
Yeah.
I felt, yeah.
That's great. Do you think there was any influence from your father owning a business? Do you think
Yeah.
that has anything, and not that it needs to, but do you also ever talk about what it's like? And because you're kind of going through the same thing, not quite what he's doing because it's a different industry, but do you think that had any influence?
Yes. I think his work ethic kind of rubbed off on me early, and understanding that, putting the work in actually does kind of generate reward on the back end. I saw the ability to, I don't know, I feel like independence is a bad word for it, but financially independent, having the ability to kind of charter your own path, do things your way, but then also kind of create and build something that's going to last beyond you. It's special and important to me, and he definitely kind of played a role in that. I was scared of the W-2, not slave life, but that wasn't something I was very interested in. Not to say I don't work hard, but I feel like I'm working hard in pursuit of an actual goal as opposed to just a salary to pay my expenses.
Yeah. Well, there's Mark Cuban. I assume it's his quote, but I've heard him say, "I'd rather make 60,000 working for myself than 100,000 working for somebody else." So
yeah, definitely.
And obviously, going through all of this, the experiences that we have, it's a lot more accountability, but a lot more freedom and flexibility. So obviously, get that. So let's talk about the. You talked a little bit about the difficult part, but you're in your first few years. I think, the most failure, I think, typically comes in that first year as an advisor. I don't know the stats anymore, but you're past that. You're past your second year. Let's talk about the hard parts first. So what do you find the most challenging about what's happened in your first few years?
Yeah, so back to I guess my failure point. That being the most difficult is, although I was an athlete, you kind of get told no a lot. You deal with a lot of failure, and just kind of being able to overcome that. It's tough at first. You kind of, I don't know, you lose confidence at a point, and you kind of look yourself in the mirror and think like, is this really for me? Can I handle this?
Yeah.
So overcoming that and having the staying power to basically work through that, that was very difficult.
Yeah.
Outside of that, and you kind of touched on it as well, the majority of my market was, 23-year-old post-college grads that didn't necessarily have assets, are just kind of, finding their way into their first real job. Not the people that necessarily not that they don't need our advice, but not necessarily interested in our advice. So finding groups, finding networks to kind of integrate into that were made up of people with, one, assets, two, the want and need for financial planning. That was a big hurdle to overcome. And entering year 3, I do feel like I've kind of taken some positive steps in the right direction to just kind of mix and network with people who are really kind of in need of our services.
So I think what you said is the people that are your age and younger, it's not that they don't need assistance, they just don't want to implement it or don't think about it.
No, it's really their it's I feel, I guess, that retirement is so far out, and financial freedom. There are those who are very motivated at my age, but the majority of people, it's just not at the forefront of their mind. They're more interested in probably, I guess, building a relationship with someone else, buying a house, going out on the weekend, whatever it is. It's just not necessarily something they're thinking about.
Yeah. And I think for me, anecdotally, once people hit their 30s in my life, it seemed like they took it a little bit more seriously.
Yeah.
They were more open to listening. I actually had a client's kid who did something that earned him a lot of money. And I was trying to talk to him about just putting some on the side to invest, to not spend, and showed him, hey, this is what it could potentially be 20, 30 years down the road.
Yeah.
Before he's even in his 50s at that point. And he didn't do it. And spent most of it pretty quickly. But which happens, and that's part of what we just try to educate and try to make sure that they know. But so we talk about the hard part. Now, what's the so far? I mean, you kind of touched on some things, but what's the good part so far that you've experienced of this career?
Well, number one, and definitely number one is, the fulfilling aspect of it. Wanting to find a career that I could genuinely help people. And I don't think there's many outside of maybe like healthcare that, you're really doing that on a day-to-day basis. Like I said, there's a lot of people out there that really are in no man's land and have no clue on how they should move forward. They might think they're in a good position when they're really not. And being somebody that can come in, provide good advice, and really know that you're putting them in a better situation long term, that was very important to me. Outside of that, and I did kind of touch on it a little bit, is the independence factor. Not necessarily having somebody that's leaning over your shoulder all the time and telling you what to do. It was important to me just because I feel like I work better, not necessarily on my own. I feel like I do good in a team atmosphere.
Yeah.
But I don't have necessarily any limiting or restricting factors that are holding me down.
Yeah.
My growth and growth trajectory is entirely determined on me and the amount of work I put in.
Let's just talk about for people who might be thinking that this is a career for them. What do you think are the most important traits that you possess that will enable you to be successful in this career?
Yeah. So ability to deal with failure, number one. Number two would definitely be, a willingness to talk to people that you don't know. Not necessarily being, an extrovert, but just not feeling super anxious or, not being afraid to talk to other people, specifically people, in my situation, people that are, in their 50s, 60s and have, a larger amount of assets than I personally have, just realistically. Understanding that, from a planning perspective, you're still the professional. They're much less educated than, they might think or you might think going into it. So, being comfortable having those conversations with people who've been on this earth, 2-3 times as long as you have.
Yeah.
Then, outside of that, I mentioned the independence, but having the ability to, I guess, manage that and not let it get out of hand. You can very easily fall into a trap of not working hard because there's nobody, like I said, leaning over your shoulder. So having kind of the, integrity, but also, willpower and work ethic to go out and do things and achieve the goals you set for yourself. Although there is not necessarily that, accountability factor in the end. Yeah.
Well, I'd say from my perspective, number one, you're the harder on yourself than anybody else is, which good and bad. But, there was, sometimes you have these high expectations, and I'd say first of all, like, the one day you were like, I made a couple of mistakes on an application. I was like, that's okay. We fix it. We go back to the client. It's okay. And then it happened again. You're like, man, I'm doing a lot. And then if I was like, look, I've been doing this since 18 years or something or whatever it is now. And I said, today I messed up this, this, and this. It's okay. It happens.
Yeah.
Like, you got to move on.
Definitely.
So I think that, but then I'll say for you, we've talked about that. Why I have high expectations of you is you always do what you say you're going to do. You're reliable. You don't you're coachable, and you learn things quickly, which is part of the reason that you had those mistakes, is because I wasn't holding your hand to go through an application because I trusted that you'd figure it out. And I think all of those combined, just when people are thinking, hey, what's going to make a person successful for you, that integrity and having people's best interests in mind, they're the most important, outside of
definitely.
the work ethic and getting in front of new clients. But for me, I'm like, Ian's going to go far just on that alone. So,
Thank you. Yeah.
So is there specifically anything that you're trying to work on this year? Any type of specific markets that you want to be in, or that you're already in, that you want to expand on? Is there anything that you have from a learning perspective that you want to expand on in 2026?
Yeah. So, from a personal perspective, definitely wanting to just continue to educate myself on the different type of planning outlets out there. It's a very, there's a lot out there. A lot of information, a lot of recommendations from different people, different firms. Really wanting just to dig in and make sure that the information I am providing and the planning that I am providing is, top of the line. So yeah, from a personal perspective, just that continuing professional education, really wanting to focus on that and make sure that I'm as competent as possible. Then from a business perspective, really trying to, as I kind of mentioned it, but just find myself into networks that, are really in need of the type of planning that we do, specifically small business owners. For me, small business owners from 5 to 15 employees. I feel like it's an underserved market, although a lot of people say that they're going after them, say that they want to do planning for those small business owners. I feel like there's a lot that can be done there that they're not getting from an outside firm or a different space. So that's really been my focus in the first 2 months of the year, is finding networks, finding groups that are really primarily made up of small business owners, focusing on them, trying to build a relationship with them, and kind of, advancing my own career and business by working with those people.
That's great. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Is there anything that you want to either tell potential clients or potential advisors that are thinking about this career? Is there anything else that we might have missed that you want to get across today?
Not necessarily. The one thing I think I'd say to potential advisors, interested in maybe pursuing this career, is, really give it a shot. Not to say, I hate scaring people away discussing the difficulty of getting started, but it's really extremely fulfilling. You do see the opportunity long term, and really that's kind of what's kept me here, is just knowing that if I can stick it out, if I can put the work in, then there is going to be reward on the back end. And so what I would say to, I guess, potential advisors is give it a shot. If you don't like it and you feel like it's too hard, so be it, quit. But I think you'll end up enjoying a lot more than you think.
Well, as somebody who recruits them, I'm hoping that we get it across ahead of time so that they don't come over and want to quit. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't want us to harp on all the difficult part of it, because the whole reason you do it is the upside significantly outweighs the downside. So so yeah, I appreciate you sharing and being open about it. And as things progress in your career and while we're growing here as a team, then hopefully we can get you on here pretty regularly and give some updates. So appreciate your time. Thanks for tuning in. That's it for us.